What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to The World According to Briggs. Are you an employee? Do you work for someone else? If you do, keep watching. My name is Briggs, and I used to dance for the man, so to speak, and I hated it. That's part of the reason I make YouTube videos for work now. I really shouldn't be in an office around other people on a daily basis anyway. I say things that upset people. Most of us are workers. We work for some company, organization, or person. If you're lucky, you live in a state that has good laws supporting wage standards, worker protection, and the right to organize. Or you just got a really good employer. These are all good things. Capitalism is good in a lot of ways. The downside is it involves humans. Humans try and do some weird things when left unsupervised. This kid's parents should be arrested. Child endangerment. You let the kid go to school with that haircut? Promise he's gonna catch a beating or two. Anyway, the US economy is thriving for some, but not for everyone. The federal government has refused to advance labor laws that would help most American workers. Most states have stepped up to make vital improvements in wages and working conditions. The organization Oxfam does a lot of research. One subject is ranking working conditions in the United States on a state-by-state basis. They look at the three main concerns workers have and rate them 0 to 100. 100 being the best, you're phenomenal, you're doing a great job, and 0 being you should be ashamed of yourself. A lot of states do right by their people and have good ratings across the board. While I was researching this, I realized most of the states that were ranked on this list, the lower part of it by Oxfam, are also states leading the pack in poverty. Most cases, there's a couple in there that are not, but I think it's 8 or 9 out of 10. Anyway, if you're looking for a new state to get some work, you should probably avoid Number 10, Louisiana. Their overall score is 23.16 out of 100. Yeah, that's not good. There really isn't a lot of good things going on in Louisiana once you get past the food and the people. People are amazing, food is outstanding. But when it comes to working in the Pelican State, they're one of the worst. Minimum wage in Louisiana, they go with the federal minimum wage, and that's $7.25 an hour. It's poverty wages. A few states do this and it sucks, but what really sucks about Louisiana's minimum wage is the cities and counties can't change it. Some states like Washington will raise the minimum wage in areas that have a high cost of living. Washington did it with Seattle. You can't do that in Louisiana. Out of a possible score of 100, Louisiana got 12.55. Don't move to Louisiana if you like money. When it comes to worker safety, they get a 4.28, almost halfway to being good. They lead the country in workers losing fingers. At least they're number one at something. When it comes to organizing, they look at the word union as being more offensive than a racial slur being shouted over a PA system at an elementary school. They don't like unions. They got a score of 16.67 in the right to organize category. A couple other things they don't require employers to do. They don't offer protection for workplace breastfeeding. They don't provide any form of paid family leave. They don't provide any form of paid sick leave. Now, if an employer does that, that's on them. The state isn't requiring it. Number 9, Tennessee. Tennessee is not a place most people want to live already. Combine that with a crappy place to work, and you have a place friends and loved ones tell you to avoid. Tennessee has a lot of problems. Most of those problems center around Memphis, but when it comes to being an employee, Tennessee as a whole is a problem. This is another state that uses the federal minimum wage, and nobody is allowed to raise it. That is what most people call a dick move. Volunteer State has a 21.64 overall score. With that $7.25 an hour BS, for the minimum wage, they get a score of 21.16 for wages. As you can see, things don't look good so far. Tennessee has a poverty rate of 15.3%. And as you can imagine, poverty has something to do with how much money you make, or in this case, how much money you don't make. But the cherry on top of the Tennessee suckage sundae is their 11.01 score for the right to organize, meaning they don't like unions. And that's 11.01 out of a possible 100. Jeez. Number 8, North Dakota. North Dakota had a boom in the last decade with oil production. They have well-paying jobs when the oil fields are going. Sometimes they're not going and people kind of leave. North Dakota actually had a hard time getting people to fill supporting roles in industries like fast food back when it was booming. I actually heard there were McDonald's paying like over $20 an hour just to get workers. They had no workers there. They needed to pay that kind of much. That's sort of how the free market is supposed to work. When something is short supply, you end up paying more for it. In this case, they were in short supply of burger flippers. So recently, wages aren't an issue, but they don't have laws protecting them if all that oil booming goes away permanently. Like the previous two states on this list, $7.25 an hour is the minimum wage, and nobody can raise it locally. When it comes to wages in North Dakota, Oxfam scored them 16.66. They just don't have any protection. And then 16.67 on the right to organize. Again, they're not big on unions. Where it really goes south is worker protections and rights. North Dakota does not mandate job protected leave for non-FMLA workers. North Dakota does not mandate job protection for leave longer than is required by FMLA. North Dakota does not provide any form of paid family leave, paid sick leave, flexible scheduling work shifts. There's no protection there. It's just a mess. They don't really look out for the workers in North Dakota. Number 7, Idaho. Idaho is a great state. A lot of people are moving there these days. You shouldn't move there if you're making in the neighborhood of minimum wage. Again, minimum wage here is $7.25 an hour, federal minimum wage. This is 28.5% of the living wage for a family of 4, meaning what they figure you need to survive in Idaho, if you're making minimum wage, you're only getting 28.5% of that. You really need to be making about $25.48 to be considered making a living wage in Idaho. Localities, again, are not allowed to raise the minimum wage, like the other states. Oxfam scored them an even 10 out of 100 on wage standards. Now, when it comes to worker protection, the only one getting any love is the women. They have protection for maternity leave. They also have some solid sexual harassment laws in the state of Idaho, so that's good. One thing I find strange is their non-compete agreement. In 2016, the Idaho legislature made it more difficult for employees and independent contractors across all industries to change jobs when they were covered by a post-employment non-compete agreement. This is normally a law that stops key people that may know company secrets from working with a competitor. Now, there's a lot more that goes into this, but that's the nutshell version. In Idaho, it doesn't have to be a key person. You could be working at McDonald's as a cashier, get fired, and not be able to go across town and work at Burger King. Workers' rights, they got scored a 22.2 out of 100, and the right to organize was 27.1 out of 100, and Idaho's overall score was 20. Number 6, South Carolina. South Carolina is the turning point on this list where things really go south in scoring. From what I can tell, these people wouldn't mind bringing back the labor laws they had in, let's say, the early 1800s. Their overall score was 14.38. That's more than a 5-point drop from the last one on this list. All the others were within a point of each other. Not South Carolina. They took a serious drop. Now, first the good, and there's very few things. Protection for equal gender pay is solid. Good laws, good protections. Solid again is their sexual harassment laws. They do good there. And paid pregnancy leave is a state law. So those are good. And that's about it. Because of the protections, they aren't the bottom of the barrel when it comes to worker protections. They got a 30.33. Wages suck, so they got a 12.6. And for the right to organize, they got a 0. They got a 0 because they treat someone trying to start a union like a felon on his 3rd strike. Don't work in South Carolina. Number 5, North Carolina. We all know North Carolina and South Carolina are very different states. If you look at the stats and workers' protection laws, you'd think they're the same state. North Carolina's overall ranking was 12.82 out of 100. Wage standards were 13.23 and worker protections were 22.57. Kind of similar to South Carolina. But if you dare talk about starting a union in the state of North Carolina, they will come to your house and rip that Confederate flag out of your lawn and revoke your good old boy status. Like South Carolina, they scored a 0. Number 4, Georgia. Staying in the southern states, we come to the Peach State, Georgia. Like the other southern states on this list, it sucks to be an employee in this state. Now, all that can be different if you have a good employer, and there's plenty of them in each state. The downside is there's even more really bad employers. And that's why we have laws on the books, so they won't treat their employees even worse than they already do. Keep in mind, not too long ago, it was legal to pull your 9-year-old son out of school and put him to work in a factory. We now have laws forbidding that, because people would do it if they were left unchecked. I say that now because I'm sure some people have made some pretty lame comments in the section below about states making it hard for employers, yada, yada, yada. There's a reason we have these laws, and there's a reason we need more laws to protect workers. Anyway, Georgia has 2 favorable laws out of 26 Oxfam looked at. One is equal gender pay, which is good. Georgia also provides collective bargaining and wage negotiations for firefighters. Not police, not teachers, just firefighters. The Peach State has an overall score of 11.48, a wage standard score of 9.48, and 11s for the other 2 sections. Number 3, Alabama. Hey look, another southern state with extreme poverty and a $7.25 minimum wage that no city has the ability to raise, or lower, or anything. We took another serious drop in the overall scores with Alabama. 7.75 is how the Heart of Dixie scored, according to Oxfam. Alabama doesn't have much going for it after its college football team. The people are decent, I'll give them that. Okay, so 2 things. So football, people, and college loan debt are what they're really good at. That's about it. The wage standard is scored 17.7 because workers' pay has almost no protection. And as far as worker protections go, they get a 5.56. They probably would have been lower, but of those 26 laws Oxfam looks for, they had 1. Alabama restricts access to salary history to reduce gender and racial bias. That's it. That's really the only one they have on the books that Oxfam's looking for. And as far as the right to organize, they don't have the right to organize apparently. They got scored a big fat 0 on that one. Number 2, Mississippi. Congratulations, Mississippi. You didn't come in last again. It's like the world has gone off its axis when Mississippi appears to have gotten its together. It's really weird when this happens. I did a video on education and the Magnolia State wasn't even in the worst 10. After some research, I about fell out of my chair when I came to the realization that Mississippi was actually in the top 10. And it was no surprise when I learned that the only law they have of those 26 Oxfam is looking for, Mississippi provides collective bargaining and wage negotiation for teachers. Bravo, Mississippi. And that's all the good news, folks. The overall score was 7.18 and the wage standard was 15. But workers' protection is a big fat 0. There's a slim chance you won't be chased out of the state if you try and start a union. You might get paperwork from a lawyer asking you to knock it off, and their right to organize is 5.56. And number 1, Virginia. Now, I don't know what Virginia is trying to prove, but they proved they are the worst according to the Oxfam study. I'm just going to jump into Old Dominion's numbers and get on with this. The overall is a staggering 1.85. How the hell do you beat Mississippi by more than 5 points? Are you trying to chase all the employees out of the state and just have a state filled with retirees? They scored a 0 in wage standard. But pace yourself, everyone. That is the first of 2 scheduled 0s for Virginia. Workers' protection is 5.46 and the right to organize is 0. Again, they'll probably chase you out of the state or you'll get paperwork from a lawyer telling you not to organize. They have all these financial, digital asset management, and hosting companies that pay really well. But after jobs and industries that require a big degree, you have a serious drop in Virginia in protection, wages, and everything else. They have 0 of those 26 laws that Oxfam was looking for. But basically, if somebody offers you a job in Virginia, and let's say it's a blue-collar job, it might be wise to look elsewhere. Alright, so that is my top 10 worst states to be an employee in. I hope you guys got some information out of it. If someone out there is looking for a job, make sure you do more research than I just gave you on these states and where you're going to. Not everyone's equal when it comes to being an employee in this country. But like I said, all that could change with a really good employer. These are just the laws, so there's trends there. Anyway, don't forget all the links below. Give me a big thumbs up. Tell me what you thought about the video. Don't forget to subscribe, become a member, buy a t-shirt, all that good stuff. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.